Hi y'all, this is Risha with Pecan Creek Equine Assisted Services, also known as Pecan Creek Ranch, and I wanted to share with you this video today. This is part of our series of 100 Days of Riding Kai. Kai is one of our horses here at our facility that engages with people for therapeutic experiences, for learning experiences, and maybe someday for horsemanship, but right now we're not there. I am currently working with Kai to train him to be prepared for an intervention that we call, or that is called, rhythmic riding. It is something that is taught through the Natural Lifemanship Institute. And so if you haven't been through that training, some of the concepts and some of the way I'm talking about things may not make a whole lot of sense, but if you have any questions about it, we would be happy to answer them for you. And if you want to see the other videos in this series, there will be a link in the description, or you can browse through our playlist on our YouTube site. So let's get started. All right, so I head on out, and the first ones to come greet me are Iris and Juno, Kai's sisters. They're very curious. Juno typically has to inspect everything that we bring into her space, so she does a quick inspection. And now that Juno has approved, we can move on to asking Kai about the pad.
Hi, buddy.
So notice that my first move isn't to just go right up to him with the pad, but to have a little greeting with him and ask for his engagement.
Hi. How are you today? How are you?
And as Kai engages, then he asks me for some scratches. So we do a little bit of that before we do anything else. And now that we've established a baseline for attunement and connection, then I'm going to start asking him a little bit more about the pad. And it's a little hard to do this with one hand while holding the phone and recording. So, you know, it's not perfect and it's pretty sloppy, but Kai can tolerate that and our relationship can tolerate that. That's okay. And I hope y'all can tolerate watching it. Okay, so I couldn't do all of that and have the camera in my hand, so I stopped and just focused on Kai for a minute. So for now, I'm just asking Kai to walk around with me. At this point, I really don't have any intention of getting on him. I was just wanting to spend some time with him with the pad because we just haven't done a whole lot of that. And this is just to give you an idea of where we're walking around at, what we're doing, where we are. Now, of course, when I start doing that, I disconnect from Kai a little bit and he kind of pauses, looks at the pad, kind of checks in on himself, I think. So we have a bench out around here and we found this bench and just kind of started thinking about what it might be like to be up on the bench and see what Kai thinks about that. So this is a nice shady spot. At one point, Kai plants himself. This is normally what he does when he is standing and resting. And I think he decided maybe we're going to take a nap under there. So I asked him not to do that right now. And then Gemma came by. We hung out and grazed a little bit, but then I started to ask Kai to connect back with me and to get focused on what we were doing again. He had a little something in his eye, so I took it out. And at this point, I have not tightened this up very much. So I'm going to start asking about tightening it a little bit and see how he responds. This is also really difficult to do with one hand, so you may not get to see the whole process, but I'm trying to show you his response and how I'm responding to him. So when he tightened up, seemed to brace against it a little bit, I went ahead and said, hey, I'm not going to do more than you are ready for. And so I backed up to check on him. And then when he seemed okay again, then I came back and just tightened it one more little notch. So he relaxes into it, and then he goes back into a rest and digest state because I'm not asking him anything at this point. I'm just wanting him to experience the pad and wearing it for longer periods of time. So we start walking around the pasture again, and I keep trying to film this, but every time I do, I must be disconnecting somehow because then he just stops and he quits following me. So I decided to test it out, and I am finding that seems to be the case. And you'll see what happens next as I ignore it and keep trying to film. So I cut out a big portion of this video because it got way too shaky and it was just, you were just seeing the ground because Kai decided that if I wasn't really going to be that connected to him, that he was just going to leave. And so he turned around and he trotted off. At least that's my estimation of what happened. And so this time when I was videoing, I was trying to be really careful and more mindful about remaining connected with him and less worried about the framing and filming everything. And he obliged and allowed me to re-engage with him in a conversation.
Why did you leave? Why did you leave? Huh? Where did you go? Hello, Athena. I'm not working with you. I'm working with...
This is Kai's mom, Athena.
Hi. Hi.
So as I start trying to think about what happened, I realized he bolted pretty quickly, which was kind of surprising. And so I started thinking about where we were at, and the bugs have been pretty bad this day, and something may have bitten him. So I don't know if that was what happened, but either way, we're reconnecting here.
Well, there are some bad bugs over there. Ah.
So I just start asking about the pad. I go ahead and loosen it to give him a little bit of a break from it, a little bit of relief. And then we're just going to keep talking about it.
How's that? Better?
The other thing this does is let's say it was the pad that suddenly he decided was too much and was really bothering him, is that when we reconnect and he has the experience of it being loosened up and taken off of him, he experiences the relief from the pad, not when he's running away from me, but when we're actually in connection and listening and attuning to each other here again. And so that's also part of why I went ahead and did this and took it off, in case what had happened was that he ran from the pad. But I'm not quite convinced that's what happened, but it doesn't hurt to do that here. So I'm giving him a little bit of relief with some scratches and letting him know that the best thing, the most helpful thing, is not going to be to run away from it, but to remain connected with me and continue the conversation with me so that I can help him with it.
Better?
And I'm going to have to put the camera down in a minute because, again, this is really difficult to do with one hand.
You want me to let you in there? Yeah, we'll do that in a little bit, okay?
We'll do it in a minute.
Come on. In a minute, I will let you in there after we're done, okay? I promise. Look at you, so handsome. Well, come on. Oh, we'll go in there after we're done. Thank you. Thank you. I want to go this way. Come on. This way. Yeah.
So again, I just want to re-engage him in walking around and exploring together.
You're right. This is not a good spot. Hi. Hi. Come on. Go. Do you need to pee?
So he did need to pee, but he seemed to be camera shy about it. So I had to quit videoing so that he would pee. And then we started exploring again. And I decided to bring him up to this tire and let's talk about possible mounting from different objects. So we goofed around here for a minute, but there was an ant bed around here. It was really causing some problems, so we left. And we went back to our bench, and I noticed there was an ant bed near there, and it may have been why Kai ran off, because we get fire ants around here, and he may have stepped in there trying to get near the bench when I was on it and gotten into some fire ants. So I moved it, and the next thing you know, didn't take long, I'm on him. And I'm going to pause here and kind of describe what's going on, because a really important thing is about to happen for our relationship. And I want to give y'all a little bit of more of a description of what happened as I was getting on him. Okay, so as I was getting on Kai, that bench was not as high as the other thing that I like to mount from. And so I really had to work at it. And as you've seen from my previous videos, I'm not in the greatest shape for being able to do that very well if the mounting block is not that high. So I really had to crawl and push myself up there. And I moved around a whole lot, and it was a bit of a struggle. And the entire time, Kai was so wonderful and gracious. He stood there. He tried to shift into me a little bit to kind of help me a little bit. He waited. He was incredibly patient, and that's why I'm a little bit out of breath, as you can hear in this, because it took a lot of work for me to get up there. But I crawled up there, and he let me crawl up there. He let me do what I needed to do to get on his back. I wish I had a video of it. It was incredible. But we're going to move on from here, and you're going to see what happens next. Take note of this spot. It will be important for context here in a few seconds. So I'm about to ask Kai to just put his head up and pay a little bit more attention and maybe take a few steps forward. I really don't want to share this next part with you. And I had thought about this for about a week, thinking about how am I going to share this with you, because it's a little embarrassing. And I would have to admit some things to make it kind of make sense that I wasn't sure I wanted to admit to a bunch of random people on the internet. But I did commit to this process. I committed to videoing it for you and for me. And I committed to this process with Kai. And these things sometimes are part of the process. So my hope is that beauty is made from these ashes that I created here with Kai in this video. So here we go. So we start on a nice little walk, and I wanted to get some of it on video for you, but then he went into the trees. Okay, so obviously I'm making this video after this happened, so I am okay. I did not get hurt. I got a little cut on my finger that it's healed up mostly, from grabbing onto the branch over my head, because the trees were so narrow. There was no way I was going to be able to go through that with him without getting knocked off by another branch or getting a bunch of scratches all over my face. I had to make a split-second decision about what I was going to do, because I couldn't keep him from going through the trees. This is also one of the risks of what I was doing. We were at liberty in the pasture. I could not control his movement. So I had to understand that risk and know whether or not I had the ability to do whatever I needed to do to keep myself safe. I felt confident in that ability. Whether or not I should have is another question, but everything came out okay. And I felt a little bit of a confidence boost from it, because my instincts kicked in that I had developed over my years of horsemanship. I didn't have to think. I knew exactly what to do in that moment. I grabbed onto the branch above me and held on to it as Kai continued forward. And I actually landed on my feet on the ground, but then I fell backwards after I landed on my feet. So I wasn't hurt except for a scratch on my finger from grabbing onto the branch. It was a really interesting experience. My adrenaline definitely got up. I went and took care of my finger and put a bandage on it, and then went back out to talk to Kai. And Kai didn't run off. He just walked off to the herd. And it's really interesting, when I was retelling this story to my brother and my dad and some other people in my life about what happened, my memory of it was very different from what actually happened on the video. My memory of it was that Kai started walking really fast and kind of bolted through the trees. And I didn't think I had gotten video of it. I actually thought that I had, when he started walking faster, that I put the camera away because I was like, ooh, this isn't feeling right. But that's not what happened. And I'm actually really glad that I caught this on video, because it's a really good example of what your brain does in those moments of high stress and high energy, where you have to react and you don't really have time to think. The parts of your brain that are responsible for recall and recording accurate memories, it's not exactly working the way that it would when you're in a calm situation. So my memory of it was much different than the video. And after I recounted the story, and then I was showing my dad and my brother the video of it, my dad was like, "Oh, so he didn't run off. He just kind of walked through the trees." And I was like, "Yeah, he did." It was just really interesting how my brain turned it into something else, quite a bit different. So watching that video back, it just reminded me of how our memory can get so
distorted and just disjointed
during high stress, and especially repeated high stress, what we would call trauma, definitely messes with our memory, and we can't really rely on it all the time, which can sometimes make things much more complicated when we're trying to heal from whatever those events might have been. Okay, so I get my finger taken care of and I head back out because I need to finish this conversation with Kai. It can't end there. That won't be good for our relationship. So I want you to pay attention to my tone of voice and how it starts out and how it changes as I reconnect with Kai and I start asking for this repair. It's really interesting the perspective I came out with and what just started coming out of me. And this is an example of why this work is so incredible to do with partnering humans and horses, because this is kind of an example of what happens. Not necessarily the falling off and all that kind of stuff. We really try to avoid all that with people who are coming out and working with our horses. But I want you to focus on how I seem to be processing it as I go back out and re-engage with Kai.
Hi. Hi. Buddy, what happened? You left me. Hi, Cloud. Hi, bud. Kai, you left me. It hurt a lot. Look what happened. Hi, Cloud. Yeah, you want to see? I really need to talk to Kai, though. Kai. Hi. Hi, you hurt me. Yeah.
I didn't video the rest of this because I really wanted to connect with Kai, but we walked back out to the bench because I wanted to have a repair in this area around what happened between the two of us. As I got him over to the bench and my heart rate had started dropping a little bit more and we had really connected again, I had this wave of emotion hit me. And so I sat down on the bench for a minute and just sat there and let myself feel it and started processing it a little. And I started recognizing what I had been saying to him and how I had been feeling and how I had internalized this event, and ended up kind of in my mind making it about something that really wasn't about him. It brought up some feelings that I'd had in relationships in the past. And those feelings got tangled up with what had happened with Kai. Because here's the thing, I don't know why Kai walked the way that he did. Maybe he decided, hey, I want to take you over with the herd. So I want to take you, let's go over here together with the herd. And he was just taking the shortest route. And that may have been all it was. But of course, I have a history with relationships, being in relationship with others. And it's not perfect. There are definitely some things that have happened in my relationships with other people that have caused me some pain and some hurt. And part of my experience with Kai brought up the pain and reminded me of what had happened in those relationships. Whether I had a cognitive awareness that that's what was happening or not, that is what was happening. And my body was responding not only to what had happened with Kai, but what had happened in the past in those relationships. And that's what that wave of emotion was, is that you left, you hurt. I wasn't talking about Kai in that moment, I don't think. I think I might have been just a little bit, but most of that probably wasn't about Kai. It was probably about other relationships, because when I look back on it now, I don't have a feeling of Kai left me or hurt me. Kai did what horses do because he's a horse. And he thought, hey, let's go join the herd because we have been separated and he likes to be with the herd. And having me on his back is a different kind of connection than having me on the ground. I was also videoing, and we saw previously in the video that I wasn't exactly completely connected to him while I was holding this camera in my hand. We had struggled with that connection too. So, of course, he wanted to go join the herd and feel like he was more in connection with others, because that's what's going to help him feel safe. And heck, I don't know what Kai's thinking exactly. It's really hard to know exactly what a horse is thinking. Even if we think we do know, we don't. And he may have decided what will make us feel both feel better is to go join the herd and be in connection with the ones we feel safe around. So as I process that back, you can see how powerful this work with our horses is, even if that's not what we're trying to do. I'm not going out there trying to work on myself and my past relationships and the pain and the hurt that I might have from those. But as we experience things together, it's going to come up, and that's what happens in life as well. And so we have to know how to process that and how to separate as much as we can some of that stuff from what's happening currently. We got to separate some of the past from what we're doing now in the present, recognizing that we can't completely keep the past from impacting the present. I sat there, processed it for a moment, and once I was really able to get in touch with what was really going on for me, then that's when Kai and I could have a good repair. And that's what we did.
Hey,
So we go back to the bench because we're going to have a little bit of a repair around this, at least the best that we can get until someone else is there with me to do it with him, so that we can kind of complete this whole repair. But for now, we're just going to do the best we can and go to the bench, and I put a little weight on him and then release, and then we go on about our day. So going forward, the next step is going to be for me and Kai to have a more thorough repair around this. Except this time, I'll have someone out there with me, like maybe Rebecca or anybody else that I trust to go out there with me. We'll put a halter on Kai. What will happen is I will probably plan on seeing about mounting, getting on, asking him to walk just a few steps, and then I'll probably dismount so that we just have a repair. We have a new experience of this out there in the pasture. Maybe we won't put a halter on him. Maybe I'll just have someone nearby that can help me if needed. I don't know. We'll see what that looks like, and maybe you'll get to see what that looks like as well. I definitely am going to probably do something different with the camera. It's not going to work for me to continue this while I'm holding the camera like that in my hand. So that is going to take a lot more effort on my part, because then I have to keep moving the camera around and all of that stuff. But you know what? We'll just do the best that we can with it. And I hope that you got something valuable out of this. And I can't wait to see y'all next time so that you can see the full repair with Kai and where we move on from there. And you know the drill. Please go ahead and give it a like if you liked it. And if you haven't subscribed already, we would love to have you along on this journey. If you subscribe and hit the little bell, it will give you a notification when I put out a new video so that you can see that as soon as it comes out. And I'd love to see y'all again soon. And please take care of each other.